Thought that help was here, but it was my own reassurance bouncing round 100,000 times in my own ecosphere. If every time you speak you keep it off the record, consequently you can keep your record clear. And if you mute the speech that shakes your frail beliefs, you only seek to insulate your image and continue down the stream in the direction clout and credit steers. Directly from your mouth into am I the asshole Reddit seers. Directly back into the greasy pockets of some Gates Foundation financiers. And then directly back into the frantic final thoughts of early trial Neuralink volunteers, staring at the numb and mumbling vacancies where recently had been their peers. Half of whom are glitching with the memory stuck on pause, and half have zero fucking clue just who they are or why they're here. It's been said that fear is all we have to fear, but that was back before the basosphere condenser came along, distilling concentrated fear that's diamond pure, crystal clear, oppressor strong, and woven into every single article you read and song they let you hear. And then Elon heard that Jeff enhanced our fears by 86%, and he said, hold my beer. And not a single sheep among the herd would turn their head or say a word, cause they were all too busy begging for the shears, begging for the muzzle, happy just to guzzle, feed, and watch a screen for all their years. Man, to each his own, can't afford a home, but they'll let you have your cozy little ecosphere, where there among your own devices you can break the seventh seal, overthrow the oracles and slay the seer. All the tomes were burned and all the lips were seared. Shut your eyes and all our lives just disappear. Now blink them twice. Welcome to your ecosphere.
Legend says that Hercules swept Cerberus right off his feet and effortlessly set him down softly as a songbird. Atlas kept the world upon his back and every day wondered whether he could stand it any longer. And Tara Reid came out to say the man they tried to label the messiah of morality was really just another rapist. And I don't intend to hesitate when asked who was the stronger. Tara, like Assange, knew that carrying the truth would be the hardest labor. Tara knew that her assailant wasn't gonna make us any safer, and knew he's just the type of man to hand a decent foreign leader US printed walking papers, and knew he'd be relentless and aggressive in the war he'd wage upon her very character, that his attempts to weaken and degrade and embarrass her would be her only compensation. But I strongly doubt that anyone could ever have foreseen the stream of hate that came from quote-unquote progressives and the self-styled titans of survivor advocation. So if you really think there's something to be gained out of sharing your pain with the world, you are sorely mistaken. The Biden team just dragged their feet addressing Tara's allegations. Until they had a decent list of smears, then they aired them out on every station. And it turns out no one wants to hear the truth of who they praised as being worthy of such bloated liberal celebration. That no one wants to really know the person they've so valiantly defended, even when it meant they had to gloat and shit all over someone braver than they'd be if given the occasion. Now cue the faceless comment squad invasion. Cue those fuckers crawling out the woodwork to come analyze the way you wore your hair and what you wear. Like your appearance waives your rights, or that somehow you're the reason for your situation. Somehow they've decided you should bear responsibility for what such monstrous men insist on doing. Somehow they're deluded by the empty, hypocritical, and useless fucking platitudes that bastard keeps on spewing. And I think it's very telling that the best of their excuses when they try to come and justify our president's abuses is a hearty butt Trump. In which case I'll remind you that you never saw the news attempt to sell us Donald Trump like he was morally upstanding or a decent human. But when Joe says something bigoted or ogles someone's little kid, CNN says, isn't this refreshing? Biden's like a mix of JFK and FDR with all the finer parts of Harry Truman. Christ, I know that they don't think that we're the brightest, but at least pretend we got a couple lumens. Ask yourself if you have ever questioned what they fed you, or do you just shut your eyes and then consume it? And now ask yourself if you ate every one of Biden's lies under guise of harm reduction and the promise of a slight improvement. And now imagine long ago that Biden chose to show you who he really was by traumatizing you for his amusement. Now imagine that you watched him touch a Bible with those filthy hands, and then assume the power of the highest seat in all the land, of knowing your attacker wields a global coalition born of 3-letter agencies who'll make a life's mission out of trying to discredit you through lies, damn lies, and collusion. Big tech is never gonna separate from our surveillance state. Fuck's sakes, they're just a breath away from total fusion. So there will come a time where even if you see the light, your voice will never reach the sky through all the bots and all the noise pollution. So trust us when we tell you that the masking of abuses is perhaps this country's oldest institution. And I know nothing nobler than facing it in honor of the truth when you know that the people holding power have been neutralizing truth since there was wet ink on the Constitution. So know that Tara's truth is something crucial to the movement. And if you see yourself a partner to the revolution, help this country see through all the baseless propaganda through the crux of Joe's illusions. And recognize that Tara Reade gave everything she had so she could tell us what the truth is. Recognize the decent thing to do when someone bares their soul and shows their bruises is not to ask for context or offer up your own solutions. Your job is just to listen with an honest mind and put yourself on Tara's side a moment so you understand the path she chooses. That there is no instant fame worth the dragging of your name. And if that's what you think, you've a lot to learn about the kind of facts the mob can handle and the kind that it refuses. You've a lot to learn about the news and all its many uses. Guess you've yet to learn the truth the news will serve as fruit from which they've squeezed out all the juices. And we all eat the husk and just pretend it's full of nutrients and isn't really useless. But the jaws of our ability to yield accountability are absolutely toothless. So don't you kid yourself that any lips are being loosened. They won't ever tell us where the bodies are or show us where the proof is. It's on you to recognize the lechery our president so regularly oozes. It's on you to muster up some honesty and ask yourself how Biden won your trust, but it's America that loses. Open up your eyes and learn to recognize the bruises. Open up your eyes and learn to recognize the bruises.
Pipe bomb in a manger, lily white danger. Kissinger still alive, isn't life strange? And by strange I mean irony forged into something enraging and shameful. Would you ever really want to see an angel? The hideous truth that the news won't use cause it doesn't quite suit their angles. Now we the consumers are better off left in the dark with our heads in the sand and our hands on our ankles. holding a smile at gunpoint, thanking the bankers, paving a path to a future where we're all staff on the super yacht, where the food, where the fuel, entertainment, and anchors. So where is your anger? So where is perfect time for you to burn the bridge to self-forgiveness. Now's the chance, take a stand, stay your hand before you cast another vote for corporate interest. Another vote that chokes your hopes of owning your own home or opening a business. They love to say their hands were tied, the stars just weren't aligned for them to get their votes in line to see their promises delivered. But they killed it in an instant. Bills don't die by accident, they're all assassinated on behalf of the congressionally kismet by some lobbyists who see themselves as agents of clandestine fate, not fences in a prison. Dealing in the stolen goods of sleeping slaves and trading on the futures of their children. Betting on a spread of daily dead where every grave's creating profit by the millions. For some fascists lurking in the wings and all of their affiliates. And every Etna demigod our senators conduct their darkest dealings with. It really gets impossible to document or fingerprint, cause it isn't just a pattern of corruption, it's the very fabric making up the structure of the system that we're living in. So dash your hopes and down a margarita goes. You box the shadows, take a little nap, and then you get back in and swing again. But if the margarita made you sick, you probably wouldn't take a drink again. So if you're voting either party, honey, think again. I recommend you steel your nerves and never serve an officer, a president, a despot, or a king again. And mark my words, the day will come where we will rise and sing again. And if voting makes you sick, well, no one's forcing you to drink again.
I didn't have to wait for long, I never had to change a song. I just sing it like a raised alarm, smile when you say I'm wrong. I can't even fake this on, can't fake while you play the charms. And I don't know the page we're on, but this is where you say you're wrong.
This is where you finally admit you weren't ignorant. You boldly voted Joe like an informed and blissful idiot. You chose to blur the parts of Biden you don't find the prettiest. Now you choose uplifting news and filter out the grittiest. But the truth is something coarse enough that even when it's hidden, it's apparent when you feel it on your fingertips. I know it's hard to deal with from a distance, and up close the truth is hideous. But there's just no getting rid of it. You've gotta let it enter it. Just worries at your skin at every moment, loud or intimate. But shake it off for fuck's sakes. You don't have to celebrate or be so proud of progress by imaginary increments. You don't have to heap such constant praise on fucking villains like they're stillborn promises or honestly just isolated incidents and not the product of the principle of privilege. Not intentional eugenics just by any other synonym. Covered up with desperate clusterfucks of rosy images. Labeled plain by any other name except for what the fucking image is. So once you stare the page down enough, you'll spot the difference.
that one is red and one is blue, and that's the only truth, because neither one delivers on that promise of deliverance. One is red and one is...
Who are these people?
What's up, everybody? You know what day it is.
Hey, it is Wednesday, my dudes.
It is Wednesday. That's it. That's it. It's Wednesday, my dudes. What's up, fam?
Hey, everyone.
Welcome to another episode of INN News with me, Reef Breland, and my co-host, Collin Radix-Carter, a.k.a. Care Bear. What's up,
What's
fam?
up? Good. Episode 31. We're getting there. How you doing, Reef?
We're doing good. What do we get at 41? Like what do we get then? Like how's that work?
Well, it's a question of when will we hit 41? I guess at this rate, probably in the new sometime in January.
Something like that. When will we hit 50, I guess? That's the next thing.
Oh, wow.
We gotta do something for the 50th.
Yeah.
You know?
That's like around when we started. That'll be
Yeah.
here.
Just
So
about.
that was March.
Crazy.
That'll be around March, yeah. So
Crazy. We got stories this
brief. And it's like it's brief.
week. Brief Breland. Yep.
You
I've
ever
heard
gotten
that
that?
one. Oh yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Everything that rhymes with "eef" pretty much got put on, you know? So anyway, we got stories this week. You brought some
which
fun
is
stuff.
I think in light of basically the world is falling apart, and I think just with some of the big news that people have been talking about, I think obviously the Fetterman Oz debate, which we're not talking about, I think there's enough commentary on that. But it just feels like everything is just falling apart at the seams, it seems.
It seems. It does seem that way.
Not seems, it is.
Yes.
But
it sometimes don't be like that, but it do.
Yeah.
Space be like that.
But yes, but we do have stories, different ones you might be hearing from everyone else, somewhat, maybe, at least most of them. So we're going to talk about our new, well, in the UK, the new Prime Minister. And must I say, just to give myself a humble brag for a second, I freaking love this thumbnail. Like, I'm really proud of them, that I did this week.
That's good.
But yeah, based on the 10 Things I Hate About You poster. So I'm calling it 6 Things I Hate About You, because we're going to talk about Rishi Sunak, who's the new UK Prime Minister. And you could probably guess what we don't like about him, but there's 6 things mentioned in the article. So hence the title of that segment, 6 Things I Hate About him. Oh, hopefully you all will hate about him. But what you got, Reef?
I got friend of the show, Scott Ritter, did a piece. He's a ex-Marine weapons inspector, right? And I know a few people probably heard about this dirty bomb scare in Ukraine. He did a story about that over at Consortium. So we'll take a look at that. And I know it's a little bit of late news, this weed pardon stuff from Biden, but I felt like I wanted to wait to talk about that to get the whole story before talking about that. So I did and got a pretty decent story. So we'll take a look at that. And you got a little rant together on Boyne?
Yeah, I didn't call it a rant this week. I mean, yeah, but yeah.
Doesn't even deserve it.
No, he doesn't even deserve it at this point. But but we are going to talk about Bernie playing up his old tricks, just as far as, now which is in 2 weeks. Can you believe it's in 2 weeks that we have midterms to worry about?
Yeah.
So yeah, he's basically wanting us to vote Dem. and all that mess. So unfortunately, don't want to, but we will talk about him as well. So, but yeah, so just a reminder to you all, like this stream, share the stream, sub to the stream. We're trying to hit 10, well, I wish we were trying to hit 10K. I mean, we will, but
Yeah,
we're trying to
1K
hit
would be nice.
5K first. Hopefully by Christmas, if
Would be
not
nice.
sooner. So we can get that monetization game going. And then, yeah, I think with that, it helps us to start creating more content, you know? So, so yeah, definitely help us out with that. Like it and share it out, and continue watching us. We really appreciate you and we love you.
Next week we got great guests lined up, and the week after next, I think we're okay to say. Hopefully the schedules line up.
Maybe we should save to the end just so people don't tune us out beforehand.
Sure.
So maybe we should
They're like,
say
we'll
that.
just watch next week.
Yeah.
We might put it in the
Like, we
middle
want-
between a story.
Yeah, maybe in the
Um,
middle, sure. But I think we want people to kind of,
Yeah, that's gonna be
I
fun.
mean, that being said, like we're very excited about these guests, assuming that, you know, that they
Yeah, scheduling works out.
confirm, you know,
Yeah.
but at least lined up. But yeah,
We
we're very
got
excited.
initial okays from both, so
Yeah, so we're good. So,
gonna be fun times.
Yeah,
But anyway, you want to get started?
I will
I
get
think your
started.
story's up first, right?
Yep.
So-
So let's talk about Rishi for a
Okay.
second.
Not our Richie, but the other Richie.
Not our Richie, not the one that we love, Richie Medhurst, but
Mm.
Rishi Sunak, of whom is touted in the media as the first Indian or of color prime minister in the UK. I'm sure that's what they're going to be leading with, probably for the next week or so. But there's some things that we should probably know about this guy. You know, and I know some of you in the chat have already hinted as to what that is, but some of those things are, but you know, but just to educate ourselves a little bit, especially since it is one of our major allies right across the pond. But this article, I believe, is actually a little older than the date, but I think they just reintroduced it now in light of him, you know, essentially getting, you know, becoming prime minister this week. But written by Adam Bychawski from, well, I think this article was originally from opendemocracy.net, but I pulled it from Common Dreams. The many things Rishi Sunak doesn't want you to know, from offshore dealings to right-wing think tanks. Here's our guide to the man who will become the UK's richest prime minister. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, reportedly the richest MP in Parliament, will be a boon for the financial lobby, tax justice campaigners have warned. The man trounced by Liz Truss just weeks ago, well, days ago, has been confirmed as her replacement with the exit of Penny Mordaunt from the Tory leadership contest. But experts say Sunak has not been transparent with his finances and that his hedge fund background raises questions about his commitment to fighting tax avoidance. His early profile has risen sharply since he became chancellor in early 2020, just weeks before the first lockdown began. But critics say a slick public marketing campaign has disguised a man with ultra-privileged background who is a committed Thatcherite ideologue. So this is a tweet they posted last winter when he became chancellor. Growing up, I never thought I would be in this job, mainly because I wanted to be a Jedi. I'm honored that on this day last year, the PM asked me to serve as chancellor. It's been incredibly tough, but thank you to everyone who has supported me along the way. So you want to scroll down? Shows a cute little picture of him, you know, when he was a boy, and now, and over a year ago, you know, grown up.
I'd rather have the cat that sits outside that door. A lot.
What?
There's a cat that sits outside that door all the time that I'd rather have as PM.
Oh,
know?
true.
But
Yeah. So this message carefully tiptoed around his privileged upbringing. Until the age of 11, Sunak attended Oakmont Preparatory School and then the Shroud Independent Prep School the latter of which now charges fees up to £18,500 a year. From there, he studied at King Edward VI School in Southampton, now £17,000 a year, before moving to Winchester College, now £43,335 a year. 5 chancellors and 1 prime minister have attended Winchester, one of England's oldest public boarding schools and a long-living rival of Eton before Sunak. So those of you who might know Eton's basically where the elite royals, especially, have gone to school. So basically one of the elite school, preparatory school in the UK, for those who don't know. Sunak's tweet made me smile, said Richard Beard, an author whose latest book, Sad Little Men, Private Schools and the Ruin of England, assesses the private education system and the many politicians that have been through it. The idea that while studying in Winchester College, he would have never thought he would be at the top of government is very unlikely to me. Leadership qualities are one of those things that they teach you, and you're bound to think of your future in those terms. So he would definitely have thought that this is the kind of job that he'll be in, even if he didn't explicitly think of Chancellor of the Exchequer. In media profile, Sunak's allies describe him as immaculate, calm, and organized, qualities befitting of a former Winchester head of college. Non-volunteer that he is empathetic or compassionate. When given examples of people who are experiencing hardship in Parliament or press interviews, as he was on Good Morning Britain last year, Sunak lists policies in response, but offer no consolations. Beard, whose book is partially based on his own experiences, believes all male boarding schools emotionally harm their students. To survive, he says, boys cannot show any vulnerability among their peers. If you repress emotion for yourself, then ultimately it becomes very easy to repress the feelings for other people, he argues. And while boarding schools like Winchester may prepare students well to advance in politics, Beard says they instill a worldview that is far from ordinary. Money is at the center of it all because everyone knows it costs a lot of money, including the boys, but the actual money is abstract. The needs of everyday life are simply taken care for you, said Beard. How can you actually then think in terms of people struggling for £5 and £10? So number 1, he cuts benefits. Last year, Sunak was heavily criticized for axing a £20 a week increase to universal credit that had helped some of the poorest families through the pandemic. More than 200,000 would have been pushed into poverty as a result of the cut, according to research by the Joseph Rowntree Foundation. Just weeks before the cut was confirmed in July, the Chancellor requested planning permission to build a private swimming pool, gym, and tennis court at a Grade 2 listed Yorkshire manor that Sunak and his wife, Ashita Murthy, purchased for £1.5 million in 2015. After several MPs from his own party spoke out against the universal credit cut, Sunak increased in-work benefits in his autumn budget, but not by enough to offset the cut. Number 2, he has a lot of money. Sunak's Georgian mansion, where locals described attending parties with liveried staff who were sharing pain from magnums, is not the only property they own. There's also the £7 million 5-bedroom house in Kensington, West London, a flat also in Kensington that the couple reportedly keep just for visiting relatives, and an apartment in Santa Monica, California. The Chancellor's extensive property portfolio is just one source of his wealth. After studying at Oxford, Sunak went on to work for U.S. investment bank Goldman Sachs for 4 years. He left to pursue a business degree at Stanford University in California, where he said being influential figures in the multi-billion U.S. tech industry left a mark on him. From there, Sunak had a stint working at hedge funds back in London. He was a partner at the Children's Investment Fund, where he's believed to have made millions of pounds from a campaign that helped trigger the 2008 financial crisis. Sir Chris Hone, the fund's founder, paid himself a record £343 million in the first year of the pandemic. TCI is ultimately owned by a company registered in the Cayman Islands, according to its accounts. Its philanthropic arm, the Children's Investment Fund Foundation, donated £255 million to charitable causes last year. Full disclosure, open democracy, has received funding from ICIFF since 2019. Thank you for the accountability there.
Mhm.
Sunak then left to co-found his own firm, Falim, I guess that's how you say it, which had an initial fund of £536 million and is also registered in the Cayman Islands.
Yeah,
Where are we at?
offshore
Three
accounts.
or yeah, offshore accounts. Three or four. I think it's 4 now.
Hmm.
His financial interests aren't very transparent. The Cayman Islands are one of the world's top offshore tax and secrecy havens. When an investment is made through a hedge fund in the Caymans, no one can possibly know where that money has come from, said Alex Corbin, the chief executive of the Tax Justice Network. Not all the money that goes through the Caymans is dirty, and hedge funds argue that they need to keep their investment strategy secret to be competitive. Nevertheless, it is probably the best, certainly the most reputable way of allowing fairly questionable money in large volume to go into mainstream financial markets, said Cabo. An estimated $483 billion a year is in cross-border tax abuse by multinational companies and by individuals hiding assets in havens like the Cayman Islands, according to the Tax Justice Network. Somehow, in the financial sector, we still have this idea that's basically smart to game the system. If these are the people and the culture that is coming into public life, then we got a real problem, said Collin. When Sunak became a minister in 2019, he placed the investments he held from his years of working in finance into a blind trust. Such agreements are intended to avoid conflicts of interest by handing over control of assets to a third party, but wherever that works in practice is questionable. These trusts don't necessarily come with any legal mechanism to prevent the owner of the assets actually dictating what happens, or indeed seeing through any claimed blindness, said Collin. If politicians were willing to make the information transparent, including legal documents, we might have some confidence in that, he adds. Sunak has declared the trust in his entry on the registry of ministers' financial interests, but not the contents of it. The rest of his disclosures are remarkably minimal for a man with an estimated net worth of £200 million. Aside from the trust, he has listed his London flat and the fact his wife, Ashta Murthy, owns a venture capital investment company, Hatchaturman Ventures, which the couple founded together in 2013. Murthy, who Sunak met at Stanford, is the daughter of Indian billionaire N.R. Narahanya Murthy, who co-founded the IT company Infosys. Her shares in that firm are worth over 430 million pounds alone.
Yeah.
A fortune larger than the Queen's and enough to make her one of the richest women in Britain. The Murthy family, Narahana's children have dropped the H from their name, wonder why, is reportedly to have invested part in their wealth through Hatchaturman Ventures, though how much is unclear. Sunak resigned his directorship from the company in 2015.
You should have just put an F instead of a TH. You know?
Well, my guess is they did that not to make their name so Indian. That's probably my guess.
Gotcha.
I think there's someone.
I mean, MRPHY.
Maybe,
You know?
yeah, but I think it's just a way to Anglicanize the name. To make it sound more.
So his wife already has a larger fortune than the Queen.
Yes.
Okay, and then him on top of that, he's probably ridiculous.
Yes.
You know. Okay.
Yes.
Doesn't like the rich ruling our planet. Yay.
Yes.
Non-elected.
Yeah. Billionaires, basically, ruling the UK.
So a monarch in another. Okay. Just making sure we. Gotcha.
Yeah. So, I mean, people in the chat, you know what this is about, but I think this is very significant given that, Trump is questionable. Trump is rich, but not this rich, relatively. So, but I think just really the idea, especially given right now what's happening in the UK, it's very unlikely that this guy is going to do anything for the working class, especially given that he has said with Liz Truss's, financial plan was basically like, I think according to him, a fairy tale of just how it basically practically tanked, the country financially. So, but then also keep in mind, this is a guy originally that the Tories wanted to have before, like when Boris got ousted, but then Liz Truss, essentially won, the nomination within the party. So to be prime minister. So this is the original guy. So there's no question. Well, we'll have to see what happens, but given that, this man is loaded already, so Rick Solis, is said the UK finally became a real oligarchy. Welcome to the club. Yeah, well, you can argue they've been that way for a while, but especially with this guy, yeah, he's worth more than the queen. Well, the king at this point. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like this is not good for the UK.
No.
So number 5, I believe we're at now. He has strong links to right-wing think tanks. Sunak purportedly led the hawks within the cabinet who opposed taking action when scientists recommended a circuit breaker lockdown, in the summer 2020, arguing that restrictions would be too economically damaging. Johnson delayed the decision, an infectious spiral leading into a more punitive and lengthier lockdown in November. Sunak's been the voice most consistently pushing for watering down of COVID restrictions in the cabinet. So if you like, he's a kind of a logical continuation of Thatcherite impulse within the Tories, said Phil Burton Cartledge, the author of Falling Down the Conservative Party and the Decline of Tory Britain.
Ouch.
Oh, hold on. Did I skip? No.
No.
Okay. Soon after becoming a MP in 2015, Sunak wrote a report calling for the creation of free ports around the UK for the right-wing think tank Center for Policy Studies, which was co-founded by Margaret Thatcher. The policy idea that tax-free, deregulated outposts will revitalize post-industrial coastal cities was finally tried by the former PM in the 1980s, before successfully being dropped by David Cameron in 2012 after proving unsuccessful. Sunak also worked with another right-wing think tank, Policy Exchange, which, like CPS, does not declare its donors before becoming an MP, and has spoken at the Institute of Economic Affairs since becoming a chancellor. All 3 think tanks have been consistently ranked among the least transparent in the UK. Number 6, he has a slick PR operation. During the pandemic, billionaires such as N.R. Narendra Murthy saw their wealth increase. Murthy's fortune was up 35% to £2.3 billion in 2021, while inequity between the richest and the poorest grew. What then explains the seeming popularity of a former hedge fund manager like Sunak at a time in the midst of a cost of living crisis? Part of the answer might be the way Sunak has presented himself. Unusually for a chancellor, he hired the co-founder of a social media agency to manage his public image after he was appointed. Since then, the content of his social media channels, from casual Ask Me Anything style YouTube videos to puppy pictures on Instagram, have more closely resembled a celebrity influencer than a forerunner for a Tory leader. Jonathan Dean, an associate professor of politics at Leeds University, says this reflects broader political trends. Forms of celebrity are increasingly prominent within politics, and that can either take the form of people who were conventionally celebrities entering electoral politics, or it can take the form of politicians trying to aid the publicity and performance traditionally associated with celebrity culture. Sound familiar?
Yep.
Politicians draw on tactics from the world of celebrity influences, Dean suggests, partially because they can mask their political views. A lot of politicians that don't have a particularly coherent or well thought through set of ideological commitments or kind of policy ideas. And I think certain forms of celebritization allow them to circumvent that, he said. Let me read that again. A lot of politicians don't have a particularly coherent or well thought out through set of ideological commitments or kind of policy ideas. And I think certain forms of celebritization allow them to circumvent that. Thoughts on that, Reef? Well, not even that, but it's just like,
Yeah, accurate.
it's accurate, and we've been seeing this, like, I think you see this all the time, but I think especially with like the squad or AOC, I think we talked about Corey and her book a couple of weeks ago. We talked about AOC ad nauseum, but I think even in some senses, like Chris Smalls in some way kind of fits in this too. I think Chris Smalls is better in a sense of, he actually initially kind of stood for something, I think in some type of ideology he had working for Amazon, but I think we made the argument in our Substack article and then our stream out based from that, that he's kind of moved away, from more of the activism side of it, seemingly more so to more of the celebritization of, I wouldn't call it activism, but more the celebritization of presenting yourself more as an influencer rather than an activist. So yeah, so I think, yeah, basically,
I mean, all of that, like activists, politicians, labor leaders, like, I mean, where is this not being used to like squash actual change?
Right.
That tactic right there.
Right. So, but I think it's the argument, like we love celebrity. So, if they say nice tweets or if they have,
or say mean tweets, polished, or say like,
yeah, or even mean tweets in the case of Trump, but like send tweets, have like a YouTube channel or Instagram and like just become more of an influencer and, dress nice, say the right thing. And that just basically can hide a lot of the ideology, or if you have, assuming you have any, on what your real objective is. And in many cases, as we definitely seen in politics here, and definitely in the UK too, it's just like a lot of empty slates who are doing the bidding of corporations and, big banks. And it seems like Sunak, like in every way, kind of fits this bill, and probably a lot more dangerous because he had some money to back it up too. So, like, I think it's almost kind of scary that he has that much money in access to him, that he's basically able to do whatever he wants, and no one can really say anything to him necessarily. So, but anyway, keep moving on. In Sunak's case, it seems he has been even more successful in influencing journalists than the public. A picture of him working from home in a hoodie became a media frenzy after columnists from Vogue and GQ commented his looks, which in turn sparked mockery on social media. It wasn't long after that Sunak was being asked how he felt about being described as Dishy Rishi in an interview with Lad Bible. While Sunak may be the most popular Tory politician among the public, among party members, he is second to the Foreign Secretary Liz Truss, his main rival for Tory leader if Johnson goes. Again, remember, this was an old article. Burn College suggests that this might be because he was not demonstrating the same zeal as Truss for pursuing a war on woke, quote unquote. He is that of the same mode as Cameron, economically Thatcherite but socially liberal, said Burton College. That said, I can't see him throwing back on the tough rhetoric about migrants in the channel.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we actually have a clip. I forgot her name, but another MP. I think she's in Labor, in the late part of the Labor Party, who basically, calls him out. Basically saying this article in basically 2 minutes. So
right.
If you want to help play that for me.
Rishi Sunak, the wealthiest member of parliament, is totally unfit to be prime minister. He is someone who has benefited from an elite education, going to a private school, Oxford, having a career in banking before pursuing a career in politics. So as prime minister, whose interests do you think he'll be serving? Rishi Sunak and his family belong to a very exclusive club who think the rules don't apply to them, including tax rules, benefiting from a non-dom status that you can't use. Taxation rules are something you don't have a choice about. Don't expect someone who has benefited from millions of pounds in tax being dodged to crack down on tax avoidance. Rishi Sunak's campaign video featured his parents migrating to the UK and telling a British success story.
Family is everything to me, and my family gave me opportunities they could only dream of. But it was Britain, our country, that gave them and millions like them the chance of a better future.
But as a member of the government, he's actively pushed through policy that stopped people from being able to come to the UK and rebuild their lives. From the Rwanda policy that will deport refugees thousands of miles away to defending the hostile environment. Rishi Sunak is a complete utter fraud. This again shows the limitations of representation politics. Having black and brown people at the top does not mean that the lives of black and brown people in the UK and across the world will be better. In fact, they have gotten worse. The Tories are the party of the 1%, and they will always do the bidding of the 1%.
We inherited a bunch of formulas from the Labour Party that shoved all the funding into deprived urban areas. Then that needed to be undone. I started the work of undoing that.
Things are bleak, and there often feels like there is no hope. But like the Liverpool anthem goes, at the end of a storm, there's a golden sky. Across the country, we're seeing workers organise across so many sectors, whether it's the RMT to barristers, cleaners, teachers and nurses. What this is showing us is that another way is possible when workers stand up, fight back and hold this government to account. Whoever wins the Tory leadership race, we know that our media will not hold them to account. That's why it's so important to support independent media like Double Down News, so give them some money if you can to their Patreon. Join the future of journalism, join Double Down News on Patreon.
Okay. So Zara Sultana basically said everything that in the article, I was said, but yeah, basically essentially another aristocrat, probably in the worst possible way, is now leading the country in the UK in a time of crisis right now. No, wait, play again.
Oh, you got it. You got it.
Oh,
that was the end.
I think actually.
Yes, that was it.
Oh, I think I did put up another tweet here, but that's okay. So, any last thoughts?
I mean, it feels like same old for the most part. Like, the fact that this is an unelected individual is what's insane.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think like it's crazy how rich that guy is to be in office, for one.
Yeah.
On top of the policies he's of course done, just like politicians here who are celebritized, So yeah,
actually, I'm gonna read this tweet.
Go ahead.
I tried to put it up before. I guess I needed to review it, but friend to the show, DJ Joe Nice, who's actually in the UK right now. He sent this tweet, so I'm just going to read it. Rishi Sunak has the elitism, classism, and identity politics of Kamala Harris, the austerity, dislocation from the working class, and political power of Obama, and the unearned rise to leadership with the obscene corporate wealth of Trump. Well, I can argue even more than that. And it's more legit than Trump. The UK has 2 years of this. Ouch. So, so yeah, I think basically he fits every mold that you could possibly get. He's Indian, which fits the identity politics thing. He has the money in ridiculous amount, and then but yeah, very much Obama-esque Like I definitely get those Obama, even like Trudeau vibes from him, you know.
Yeah.
But I think it'll be interesting if, well, we'll see how long he lasts, but I think, you know, like the one positive thing could be that this could lead you know, the working class in the UK to actually move, you know, in terms of really organizing. And I think in light of the horror stories we're hearing in the UK, just as far as energy costs, you know, like food costs going up, you know, like and winters in the UK are shit, you know.
Yeah.
So, you know, so really I think this could be, I think it'll be very interesting to watch. And I think this might be, I think we definitely need to watch this. I think in terms, I think in the US, you know, just seeing how the UK responds to Sunak being prime minister, and just seeing one, how long he lasts, you know, because again, this trust was only there for a few weeks.
Like a week,
you know?
yeah.
So let's see, like, it's not guaranteed that Sunak is even going to last 2 years until the next general election. But also, it'll be interesting to see like how the working class responds, you know, to him, given, you know, the things that they've said, you know, to him on social media, and obviously knowing of his wealth, and them just being like very nonchalant about it and almost kind of throwing it in, you know, the population's face of how rich they are, you know, like, even though I think they try to downplay it a lot, but we'll see how much they really are for the working class. So it'll definitely be an interesting, you know, I don't want to say 2 years, but we'll give 2 years just to see.
Sure.
Like if he makes it that long. But
well, speaking of overseas, so did you see that story about the dirty bomb? Did that make it to your timelines? No?
Are you asking me, or are you asking the chat?
You specifically.
Only when you showed this to me last night.
Okay. You need to like trim the beard. It's getting like, you know, when you got to pull hairs out of your mouth every like 5 minutes, it's like it's time.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
Well, Scott Ritter, who Tars had him on her podcast, and wrote this up for Consortium News, and he's Scott Ritter was a former weapons inspector. So I felt like he was a good choice for writing this story. So he talks about the dirty bomb scare here. And Russia appears to be legitimately concerned about the possibility of Ukraine building and using a dirty bomb, so much so that it has taken the unprecedented step of reaching out to multiple senior Western defense authorities. So, another friend of the show, you know that little guy's that guy right there, old Richie Medhurst. If you're not subbed to Richie, but he's got a little 7-minute video to intro this for us. So you ready, fam?
I'm ready.
So there's this new claim from Russia that the Ukrainians are planning to use a dirty bomb. And when I saw dirty bomb, the first thing I thought of was Iraq, because I remember back then on TV, you had this claim in the UK and the US that, you know, Saddam has weapons of mass destruction and he has all these variants, right? He can cook up anthrax and bubonic plague in the back of a truck like Breaking Bad. You know, he has underground facilities, and he's also planning on giving it to Al-Qaeda, and he has dirty bombs. So that's a bomb that contains radioactive material, okay? And now, turns out this isn't about Iraq. It's about Russia and Ukraine. So let's go through it together. Here's the BBC article. I know some of you are rolling your eyes. Oh no, BBC. Yeah, I'm rolling them too. Ukraine war. NATO denounces Russia's dirty bomb claim. So let's see what's going on. NATO's Secretary General has warned Russia over its quote-unquote false claim that Kiev might use a dirty bomb, conventional explosive laced with radioactive material. Stoltenberg tweeted that the NATO allies reject this allegation and Russia must not use it as a pretext for escalation. The Russian defense minister Sergei Shoigu made the dirty bomb remarks in a call with his UK counterpart, Ben Wallace. So that's interesting that the Russian defense minister is calling the British one. I saw Lloyd Austin, who's the head of the Pentagon, so Shoigu's counterpart, also holding a call with him. Let me pull that up quickly on Twitter. There we go. This is the one I'm looking for. So this is 23rd of October. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin says, quote, I spoke by phone today with Russian Minister of Defense Sergei Shoigu, who requested a follow-up call. I reject any pretext for Russian escalation and reaffirm the value of continued communication amid Russia's unlawful and unjustified war in Ukraine. That's great. How about you get out of Syria too? That's unlawful. No, but seriously, like what I'm trying to tell you guys is that the Russian defense minister has basically been calling up his counterpart in the US, in the UK, and other countries to talk about this dirty bomb. And I don't think I've seen something like that in this war, where the Russian defense minister is trying to speak with his counterparts, all of them, and warn them about something. So that's interesting. You could reach two conclusions based on this information. You could think that, okay, well, he must be serious. If he's calling these people up who are actually really his enemies, and he's calling them up, what's going on here? Is it a ruse, or is he serious? I don't know. I don't know what's going on, but let's continue. So Ukraine condemned the remarks. Zelensky said this meant Russia itself could be preparing an attack of this kind. Yeah, I knew that. I knew he'd say that. On Sunday, Mr. Shoigu... Oh, there we go. This is what I was just telling you. So he called the French, Turkish, and American defense ministers. He provided no evidence to back up his accusations. He said he was concerned about possible provocations by Kiev involving the use of a dirty bomb. Other top Russian commanders made the same allegation. But in a joint statement, the French, British, and American foreign ministers said they reject Russia's transparently false allegations that Ukraine is preparing to use a dirty bomb on its own territory. They're saying that, military analysts are chalking this up to Russia just, being a sore loser. They're losing ground, and so they're trying to make up this dirty bomb thing. That's their take on this. Since Russia invaded Ukraine in February, 30-nation NATO has provided Kiev with billions of dollars worth of weapons and military training, but refuses to intervene directly with air support or troops, as Ukraine is not a member. Christ. I mean, you just kind of said they're intervening directly, but okay. Zelensky accused Russia of being the source of everything dirty that can be imagined in this war, and he said Russia was threatening the world with radiation disaster at the Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant, which it had captured, and also spoke of Moscow's threats to detonate a major dam in southern Ukraine. We have had a couple of escalations in the war. The Crimea bridge was blown up with a truck bomb. The Nord Stream pipelines were blown up and sabotaged. And all evidence points to these being man-made events and to being therefore sabotage and perpetrated by Ukraine. The Ukrainians basically admitted that they blew up the Crimea bridge. I have the video of the foreign minister of Ukraine literally saying that on tape. And before that, we had the SBU, the Ukrainian security services, basically admitting to it the day it happened. Zelensky as well. They joked about it in a way that indicated that they were behind it. And like I said, the foreign minister of Ukraine himself on tape saying we blew it up. What more evidence do you need? It was Ukraine. So, again, truck bombs, Al-Qaeda style truck bombs are in now. All right, they're in. Very fashionable these days. You have several significant escalations in the war, acts of sabotage, and Ukraine was behind them. So, logically, who is most likely to be behind a dirty bomb? Just logically. And when I'm seeing the stuff about the Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant, let me just remind you, at the start of the war, when the Russians first took the plant, this is the biggest nuclear plant in Europe, they also accused the Russians of firing at it. They said, you're endangering the plant, you're going to cause a nuclear meltdown, blah, blah, blah. And it turns out that several of the reactors weren't even online. And Russia never fired on it. They had fired something at a neighboring barrack or something. Not barracks, but it was like a tiny hut, right? So again, that was a false claim. The Russians never fired at the nuclear plant. Obviously, I think everyone would prefer that nobody fires anything anywhere near a nuclear plant. Sure, I get that. But that was a fake claim which they made. And again, I see Israel sabotaging Iranian nuclear sites all the time. No one gives a crap about that, nuclear disasters are cool in Iran if it's done by Israel. So, you know, I really doubt the Russians are trying to cause a nuclear disaster at Zaporizhia. This is nonsense. That's nonsense. And when it comes to a dirty bomb, why would they? The Russians have nukes. Okay, they have actual nuclear warheads that are better than anyone else's, and they have more of them than anyone else. Why would they use a dirty bomb? I don't know any acts of sabotage in this war by the Russians. The Russians, when they do something, they do it out in the open, right? The ones that are doing sabotage and pursuing that line of warfare, it's mainly, you know, it's mainly NATO and the Ukrainians. It's let's go after Russian generals with the help of U.S. intelligence. Let's sink the Russian flagship in the Black Sea. Let's do Nord Stream. Let's do the Crimea Bridge. That was Ukraine. So it doesn't, the behavior doesn't match Zelensky's claim that Russia would be pursuing dirty bomb. I don't see this, man. I hope for everybody's sake that there won't be a dirty bomb, because that is a very, very, very significant escalation. I mean, that's way worse than Nord Stream and Crimea. Like, if that happened, you could have a nuclear war, maybe. I'm really puzzled what's going on. You know, what do you guys think? Tell me in the comments. Like, why would the Russian defense minister be calling Lloyd Austin, Ben Wallace, and the Turkish defense minister and telling them about this? Is he serious? Is he bluffing? What's going on? In any case, this is a breaking story. It's just from the couple of past hours, so I'm just giving you all the information that we have. And just...
What do you think, Collin? So far?
I'm actually going to save my thoughts till later.
Okay.
So...
we'll get
so there's
more
this
into it.
new claim from Russia that the Ukraine...
But, so... Let's just got rid of his article again. I just wanted to showcase Richie a little bit, because it's rare that he does a video short enough that I can.
No, that's not true. He does enough clips.
Yes, but like 7 minutes is a little long for like bringing with me, you know? Otherwise I gotta like do extra work and break it up, you know? But in the span of a few hours on Sunday, the senior-most Russian defense authorities, Minister of Defense Sergei Shoigu and General Gennady Gerasimov, I think is the names of these people, right? Called their counterparts in the US, UK, France, and Turkey with the same message. Ukraine is prepping to detonate a so-called dirty bomb. High explosives wrapped radiological material designed to contaminate large areas with deadly radioactive isotopes. You've heard of dirty bombs before, Collin, right?
Well, now I have.
Okay. So this is theoretically the way they work, right? You know, you put radioactive material, right? I think cesium was the one that I remember them talking about. When in regard to like Iranian dirty bombs. But it's then a conventional explosive like, you know, fertilizer, ammo, that sort of stuff, right? To essentially disperse this radioactive material, right? As opposed to like a nuke, which actually separates atoms.
Right.
You know?
So this is basically, it's basically, I don't want to say it in this way, and I don't think it's not even equivalent, but it would be kind of the equivalent if you made like something at home, almost, in a sense of...
Yeah, you had to be able to have the radioactive material, but you know,
like
you cook down enough bananas.
Given like if you don't have necessarily the technology to have a nuclear bomb.
Yes.
That this would be,
you don't know how to quite split that atom in the right way.
Like,
you know,
this is
or enriched.
old,
you also need
this
enriched radioactive material for that, and you don't necessarily need that for this. You can use a much more, but so collaboration on a dirty bomb at a National Academy of Sciences site in Ukraine was exposed by details in Russia, right? So you think this is just Russia claiming? No, this is an actual like Academy of Science over in Ukraine, right? So UK Defense Minister rushed to emergency meeting in DC, pissing in his pants as a result of a Russian expose. Russia may have retaliated against London. So Russia is not only concerned at the immediate impact of Ukraine detonating such a device in terms of the harm that we've done to people and the environment, but the potential for such an event to be used by Ukraine's Western allies to directly intervene militarily in the ongoing conflict, similar to what occurred in Syria, when allegations about the use of sarin nerve agent by the Syrian government against civilians were used by the US, UK, and France to justify an attack on Syrian military and infrastructure targets. It turned out that the allegations of sarin use was false. The jury is still out about the use of commercial chlorine as a weapon.
Yeah, just stop. That's kind of what I was thinking about, but I feel that's kind of where I was thinking, like this is kind of Ukraine's way of kind of saying,
it's
in
tagging
a way,
people
kind of,
in.
Yeah, like, because really Russia and the US are not doing anything directly.
Yeah.
But essentially Ukraine is kind of making it so like
they have to.
Someone has to do, like, they're basically egging both sides on.
Yes.
Like, so Ukraine is basically saying, oh, I have this bomb, Russia, what are you going to do about it? But then like, hey, look, like, like I have this bomb, guys, I need some help. And I feel
at the same time, they're blaming Russia for it.
Right.
Like, they're blaming Russia as the maker of it, when it's like, well, no.
So I
actually,
just feel like, so I just feel like this is Ukraine's way of just kind of, in a sense, I think as far as our media gaining more support for this, especially from our politicians who are already giving a lot more money. But I think, in terms of like, if you're thinking financially, them having a bomb and then kind of almost saying, almost to the West, if we need to use it, we will. But obviously, like, we don't have the manpower that you guys have, that you're able to do something in Russia. So we need you to kind of help us. So yeah, I think this is just kind of egging both sides, but more especially the West, in terms of the finances and the manpower that they have, that we actually have nuclear bombs to really offset what Russia has. So
yeah, Russia is to raise the matter at the UN Security Council on Tuesday, Reuters reported, and in return, Western governments on Monday accused Russia of plans to deploy a dirty bomb. We've been very clear with the Russians about the severe consequences that would result from nuclear use, said U.S. State Department spokesman Ned Price. There would be consequences for Russia whether it uses a dirty bomb or a nuclear bomb. Ukraine is requesting that the International Atomic Energy Agency, the IAEA, send a team to Ukraine to investigate. So, yes, this is them more egging, right?
Yeah.
For all the press attention that has been given to the possibility of a dirty bomb being used in Ukraine, history shows that despite the hype, a dirty bomb is not a weapon that is either easily produced or procured or causes the kind of mass casualties its proponents hope for.
Yeah, that was also what I was thinking. It's just like, it's not like on the same, that's why I made a very bad, association, but it's not going to kind of do the damage that a nuclear bomb would.
No.
I think it's just a way to kind of get, again, I'm not even sure really, as I'm saying, this is more for Russia. This is really more for the West.
Yep.
Just in terms of like, we don't have anything. We need you. Give us more money or ally with us and bomb Russia, basically, is what I'm kind of getting that vibe out of this.
So the current dirty bomb scare isn't Russia's first encounter with the concept. In November 1995, a dirty bomb comprised of high explosive and cesium was uncovered in Moscow's Emailovsky Park, and in December 1998, another cache of radioactive material was found attached to an explosive charge near a railroad track in Chechnya. Both devices were disarmed by Russian security forces. So, in May 2002, FBI agents arrested Jose Padilla, an American citizen who converted to Islam as he returned to the United States from a trip that took him to Egypt, Pakistan, and eventually Afghanistan, where sometime in 1999-2000, he allegedly met with Abu Zubaydah, Osama bin Laden's operation chief. According to Zubaydah, what is that, Zubaydah, I think?
Yeah. It's about it wrong both times. the
Sure.
name, but whatever.
He and Badilla discussed the possibility of Padilla building and detonating a dirty bomb inside the U.S. Right? While Al-Qaeda had apparently drafted plans for such a weapon, and in fact had accumulated radioactive medical isotopes for use in a dirty bomb, these materials were seized by the UN in 2002. None of this information was shared with Padilla, who arrived in the U.S. with neither weapon design nor means to accomplish the task. He was tried and convicted nonetheless. The closest the world has come to the actual production and employment of an actual dirty bomb came in 1987 when Iraq built and tested 4 devices designed to spread a cloud of radioactive dust for the express purpose of killing humans. In this case, Iranian soldiers. Iraq was, at the time, engaged in a long and bloody conflict with Iran. The device in question, an air-dropped bomb measuring 12 feet in length and weighing more than a ton, was, according to documents turned over by Iraq to the United Nations inspectors, intended to be dropped on troop areas, industrial centers, airports, railroad stations, bridges, and any other areas the command decrees. According to the document, the bomb was intended to induce radiation sickness, which would weaken enemy units from the standpoint of health and inflict losses that would be difficult to explain, possibly producing a psychological effect. Death, the document noted, would occur within 2 to 6 weeks. The Iraqis chose zirconium as their radioactive source. The Iraqis had zirconium in quantities due to its use in incendiary weapons. By irradiating zirconium flakes in the Iraq nuclear reactor located in Tuiwafa, the Iraqis produced the radioactive isotope zirconium-95, which had a half-life of 75.5 days, meaning the bomb would have been used soon after it was manufactured. Right? The weapon was tested 3 times in 1987, including a final test involving 2 actual dirty bombs dropped by aircraft. The weapons were a bust, losing their radioactive properties shortly after detonation. In fact, one would need to stand within 10 feet of the point of detonation of the bomb to absorb a lethal dose of radiation, something the high explosive charge of the bomb itself made moot. The project was abandoned. The Iraqi results were replicated by Israel, which between 2010 and 2014 carried out 20 explosive tests of actual dirty bombs in the Negev desert. The research found that the radiation was dispersed in a manner that the danger posed to humans was not substantial, concluding that the main impact of such an attack would be psychological. So, Ritter wants to ask, false flag or false alert? The Russians were serious about the threat posed by the possibility of a Ukrainian dirty bomb. While the history of dirty bombs does not point to a threat on the scale or scope of an actual nuclear weapon, one can worst case a scenario which provides the potential for the significant loss of life and property from the radioactive fallout such a weapon could produce. Such an outcome would be a disaster which Russia and presumably the Western allies of Ukraine would like to prevent. So far, the Russian allegations appear to have fallen on deaf ears, with Ukraine dismissing the claims as absurd and non-government affiliated Western analysts flipping the script, accusing Russia of actually pinning a false flag attack on Ukraine using a dirty bomb of its own construction. But the reality is that Russia takes its senior military-to-military connections with its Western counterparts very seriously. Given the role such contexts play in the kind of deconfliction cooperation that keeps small-scale incidents from exploding into war, small-scale incidents, the possibility that Russia would deliberately corrupt this communication channel with disinformation is highly unlikely. Russia appears to be legitimately concerned about the possibility of Ukraine building and using a dirty bomb so much so that it has taken the unprecedented step of reaching out to multiple senior Western defense authorities to prevent such an occurrence from happening. If, at the end of the day, the appropriate phone calls are made by the West and Ukraine backs down, then Russia will have succeeded, and if it turns out that the Russian information is wrong, there was no harm from the effort. However, if Russia is correct, and Ukraine not only is preparing to use a dirty bomb but detonates one, and the West did nothing to prevent it, then Russia is on the record for having provided the West with due warning. So, again, Scott Ritter is a former U.S. Marine Corps intelligence officer who served in the former Soviet Union implementing arms control treaties in the Persian Gulf during Operation Desert Storm and in Iraq, overseeing the disarmament of WMDs. His most recent book is Disarmament in the Time of Peroitska, published by Clarity Press, if you want to find that. Just wanted to point out his accolades. Thoughts, Collin?
Yeah, it seems like Russia is trying to be the bigger man here, you know, one, like, bombs are bombs. So, so obviously, the idea of having a dirty bomb is not, I mean, we shouldn't laugh at that, but at the same time, in comparison to a nuclear bomb, like, and I don't want to downplay the idea, but it's like, nuclear bomb, it's a lot more of a serious threat than a dirty bomb is. But the fact that, like, Ukraine is almost kind of tempting Russia with this dirty bomb thing. And Russia is being like, look, like, we don't want to start nothing, like, West, take care of this or look into this or whatever. And, and then Ukraine, I think, is using this as a way for the West to kind of intervene, in a way that could potentially lead us into more of an escalation. So and at the end of the day, it just sucks all around, because whether there's a dirty bomb, whether there's a nuclear bomb, whether there's something, and I think especially with this week, given like the squad wrote that letter.
And then took it away immediately.
And then they essentially took it away, so government is still supporting this, so it's kind of like, where are the adults in the room, And I think Russia, I don't want to, like, look, I will say this, I have no love for Russia. Like, Russia is led by a capitalist in the same way that our country is run by a capitalist, Right now, though, we can only account for what we do within our own country. That's where my accountability is to, primarily. The fact that, like, again, the US is not even speaking in terms of some type of de-escalation / ceasefire / peace deal with Russia, is extremely concerning to me. And, and I think, again, even the fact that the squad, didn't even have the balls to kind of stand up when they got, I'm hearing two things, basically they got told, shut your asses up, or like, because a Republican actually agreed with them, or seemingly Republicans actually agreed of actually calling for like peace, then the Democrat probably basically attacked the squad, for the fact that a Republican, that essentially, which I thought that was politics. So
diplomacy.
Like the idea that you're right in terms of diplomacy. So
we're fucked.
Basically. So I don't know. Like, either way, it's just like, is a dirty bomb significant? Sure. Is it going to do the damage compared to what a nuclear bomb is going to do, given the article? No. Like,
but it's still
lives taken away.
It's still, you got to deal with it, because it's like,
I think this is like, but essentially, like, Ukraine is trying to make a bigger deal out of what I think it really should be, but I think in a way to kind of taunt the West.
Well, and it's also, to some degree, it's also like hypocritical. It's showing like the West hypocrisy as well, when they went in Syria and dealt with stuff, we're the world's police, but yet we're not going to police this, that's kind of the thing. So, but anyway, you have another story for us, I think.
Yeah, I mean, you can, and so guys, again, I have no pleasure in doing this. We're gonna hear from Bernie for a couple of minutes, but
Boyne,
yeah. So you can actually turn tune out, honestly. I'm just playing it for the sake of the article that I'm going to read. But yeah, here we go.
These are not normal times. This is not a normal midterm election. This is the most important midterm election in the modern history of our country because we are taking on a political party, the Republicans, who literally are trying to undermine American democracy. They are trying to make it impossible for women in this country to control their own bodies. And at a time when we face the existential threat of climate change, they could care less. They're working with the fossil fuel industry. And in addition to all of that, at a time of massive income and wealth inequality, when the richest people are becoming phenomenally richer and working people are falling further and further behind, you know what Republicans want to do? They think it's a great idea to give $1 trillion in tax breaks to the top 0.1%. I'm not kidding. They want to repeal the estate tax entirely. They think it's a brilliant idea when seniors can't, in Vermont, all over this country, can't afford to heat their homes in the winter, can't afford prescription drugs. You know what they want to do? They want to cut Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. That is insane, but that is really what they intend to do if they gain control over Congress. Now, I know that a lot of people today feel overwhelmed by all of these crises, the pandemic and climate change, and the attacks on democracy, everything else. I know that. And I know that there are people who are disappointed that the Democrats in Congress have not done more to stand up and fight for working families. I got that, and I share that disappointment. But let me just tell you, if we do not come out and vote in large numbers, and if Republicans gain control over the House and the Senate, what you're looking at is a turn in American politics far, far, far to the right, which will impact every aspect of our lives. So what I hope very much is in the remaining 2 weeks of this campaign, that we go out and we do everything that we can to increase the voter turnout, to knock on doors. You get 2 of your friends to vote who otherwise would not have. You've tripled your political impact. This election is not just about you. It's not just about me. It's about our kids and our grandchildren, and we cannot fail them. So let's get out and do everything we can to win this thing in the next 2 weeks, and let's go forward together. Thank you all very much.
Vote blue no matter who. Vote blue no matter who.
Honestly, watching that 2 years ago, I would have been all about what he's saying.
Yeah.
And now I'm just like, fuck you. Like,
well, it's who he wants you to vote for. I mean, that,
right,
you know.
but not even that. And I thought about this last night when I prepped, and I thought about it again today. Like, and this is what pisses me off about the Democratic Party in particular. They never make themselves accountable for the shit that they do. Like, at the end of the day, it's always like, oh, you have to come out and vote. It's up to you to make a change. Like, Bernie, your fucking party that you caucus for didn't give us a $15 minimum wage. Your party that you caucus for cut the tax credit. The party that you caucus for shifted people out of $600 out of $2,000. So instead of kind of maybe yelling at your colleagues and your president, who's your good friend, like they turn it on us. And that's what pisses me off. It's like, we have to be the ones to save democracy, quote unquote. And it's just like, I'm just kind of sick of it. Like, no accountability for themselves at all. And I know Bernie knows better. I know he knows better, but instead, like, you know, he's taken hostage by the Democratic Party to do this shit, you know, just, you know, to help them as far as midterms, you know? Yeah, so Rick made a good point. Like, his message is still the same. Like, nothing has happened after 2016. Yeah, like, and I think even from 2020, I kind of got tired of him kind of repeating the same thing at debate after debate, which, I mean, it needed to be heard, but at some point it just kind of got nauseating to kind of hear him repeat the same talking points. But now, like, his party is in office now, they're in control, and nothing significant has changed for people that now he has to say, like, as Ed said in the chat, he said the line, you know, like, this is the most important midterm of our life, or like, or whatever bullshit he said, you know?
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, just to kind of get into this article, Sanders warns GOP midterm win will pull US far, far, far to the right. We're taking on a political party, the Republicans, who are literally trying to undermine American democracy, said Bernie Sanders, written by this, again, Common Dreams, written by Jake Johnson. Wait.
There you go.
There we go. In his latest call for urgent voter turnout efforts, Senator Bernie Sanders warned Monday that Republicans are trying to drag U.S. politics significantly further to the right if they take control of Congress in next month's midterms, pointing to their ongoing assault on democracy, support for tax cuts for the ultra-rich, and push for cuts to key social programs. This is the most important midterm election of the modern history of our country because we are taking on a political party, the Republicans, who are literally trying to undermine American democracy. Sanders said in a video posted to social media late Monday, as voters across the country took part in early voting amidst mounting fears of right-wing imitation ploys. Alluding to the GOP support for a nationwide abortion ban, Sanders said Republicans are trying to make it impossible for women in this country to control their own bodies. And at a time when we face the existential threat of climate change, they couldn't care less, the Vermont senator continued. In addition to all of that, at a time of massive income and wealth inequality, when the richest people are becoming phenomenally richer and working people are falling further and further behind, you know what the Republicans want to do? They think it's a great idea to give $1 trillion in tax breaks to the top 1/10 of 1%. They think it's a brilliant idea when seniors can't, in Vermont, all over this country, can afford to heat their homes in the winter, can't afford prescription drugs. You know what they want to do? They want to cut Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, Sanders added. Sanders' comments came a day after he expressed concern in a televised interview about Democratic turnout, particularly among young and working class voters, and employed the party to sharpen its economic messaging with Election Day just 2 weeks away. Early data shows that more than 7 million ballots have already been cast across nearly 40 states. As CNN reported, pre-election voting remains on pace with 2018, the highest midterm voter turnout in recent history, but it's still too early to say if total voter turnout will exceed 2018, as voting habits may have significantly shifted in recent years. In his remarks Monday, Sanders acknowledged frustration among many voters that the Democrats in Congress have not done more to stand up to and fight for working families. I got that, and I share that disappointment, said Sanders, who caucuses with the Democratic Party. But let me just tell you, if we do not come out and vote in large numbers, and if Republicans gain control over the House and the Senate, what you're looking at is a turn in American politics far, far, far to the right, which will impact every aspect of our lives. So what I hope very much is in the remaining 2 weeks of this campaign that we go out and we do everything that we can to increase the voter turnout. Knock on doors, Sanders added. This election is not just about you. It's not just about me. It's about our kids and our grandchildren, and we cannot fail them. And as Kit and as Ed mentioned, say the line, Dems.
Say the line.
This is the most important election of our lifetime. So I did not want to do this. But as Nick, friend to the show, said, should we announce now?
We might as well.
I guess
should be.
We might as well. So Nick from Social 7A is soft confirmed to be on next week on INN News with us. So hopefully he does confirm. I'll be very excited to have him on the show and on the network for the first time. But this is what our friend and brother said. Liberals really trying to convince us that this is the most important election of our lifetime again.
Again.
we're fucked.
Yeah.
Unity.
I mean, yeah. I mean, what's more to be said other than the fact that the Democrats sucks, Bernie sucks, the whole system sucks, and we're the ones who have to seemingly vote our way out of this, essentially, in order for Democrats to continue doing the same shit that Bernie does not call out. You know?
Michael Jordan, what do you think?
I'm Michael Jordan. Stop it. Get some help.
Yeah, they need help.
No, we need help.
Yes.
We need help.
Yes.
They're in a position to help us, not them. We're not supposed to help them. They're supposed to help us. You know? So yeah, so it's,
and their only reason to like vote Democrat is like
Just do it.
That's it. That's all they got.
Right.
That's it.
Right. Right.
Like,
yeah, like they can't even say what they've done that's significant enough for people to be like, oh yeah, I'll vote for you. You know, because you notice that they kind of downplay, you know, even with the Inflation Reduction Act, which really did shit, you know, it was shit, you know, like, and I know Biden kind of mentions it, but, you know, but people are still suffering, you know?
Yeah.
And so like, but that's what the Democrats say. They got nothing else to say other than like Republicans bad, you know? So it's, yeah, I mean, we're going to be on in 2 weeks. We have a special guest coming on then.
Yeah.
That's going to be an interesting stream, honestly.
Yep. I blame you.
Which in a way, I'm kind of looking forward to. Honestly, in a sense, I'm kind of looking forward to it because I think like, especially in light of the Fetterman Oz debate last night. I didn't watch it, but
I didn't either.
But I heard on Twitter it was absolute shit. You know, like even like it. Well, you know it's bad when someone like Ryan Grimm had to come out and say this is bad. You know, like even the people who go to bat for like any alleged progressive in office, like. When they say it's bad, you know, like it's bad. So I don't know. Like,
yeah.
Know, but I might as well just ask this, you know, like, what do you think the turnout is gonna be? Not the turnout, but like what do you think is gonna be the end result?
I mean, massively low voter turnout, like worse than we've ever seen before.
But I think in terms of what I mean, I think almost that's going to be a given. You know, I think they play up the numbers saying, "Oh, like this is," which is kind of weird to me that you're.
It's always young people. That's the only thing. It's like the young people are getting out the vote, but they aren't. They're not replacing what was there. Like you're already at like 0.1% of the population that's like voting. You know, it's gonna be. They're gonna get slaughtered. Yeah. Like any of us who are voting are probably voting third party. Like even us are done. Even Chunk Yogurt is talking about how like like Californian candidates don't offer any change. Why vote for you?
And he's endorsing a Republican.
Right. But yet Jimmy what?
Right. Which yeah, good point. Because it's like
what?
No. Yeah, like it's so ironic that like.
Are you kidding me?
Actually, I probably will tweet that out. Like the fact that Jem Uyghur essentially endorsed like a Republican. No one has shit about that. But God forbid, like, you know, Jimmy is claimed to be a right winger, you know, because he allegedly, you know, agrees with Tucker Carlson's talking points or whatever bullshit, you know, like people.
When Jink used to be a Republican, anyway. I don't even want to get into that.
I mean, that's a given, but like you know, but I think now has evolved to being more progressive and like all this bullshit, and like, and this is a person who co-founded the Justice, like,
yeah.
like this should be
At least gave
almost
lip
damning
service
for
to it for a minute.
right. But this really should be damning. I mean, it should be damning for the Justice Democrats already. But like the fact that like, you know, Cenk Uygur is saying, you know, I would vote for Republican, you know, because like, how about nothing? You know, but I don't know. But I just kind of put it like Rick in the chat saying midterms red wedding. I think maybe in the Senate. I think what it'll be a split Congress. That's my personal opinion. I think they will just barely hang on to the House, but I think they're gonna lose the Senate. That's my unofficial vibe, whatever you want to call it.
I mean,
prediction of what's going to happen in the midterms.
Part of the reason they're going to lose is this kind of shit right here. So Biden's weed pardons won't release anyone from prison, and it's a ploy for votes. And this kind of ties us back to the first article you said you brought today, where it mentioned what did it say? That the politicians don't have any actual, you know, it's all celebrity stuff.
Ideology. They have no ideology, you know. And this other aside, you know,
Just
and I'm not sure
empty performative.
Or not, but like, yeah, but like, I saw a guy, again, not sure if he's a bot, but like he was like, in regards to John Fetterman, like I don't think he lives in Pennsylvania, but he said I support, you know, Fetterman, even like his ideology, you know, is shifted to the right. I can almost argue it never shifted. It was just always been to the right. But I think, you know, but he was like, I'm going to vote for him on account of ableism, meaning in the sense like, you know, how he had the stroke and just being like, that will mean a lot to people who are able, like, and like all that kind of stuff. And that reflects on me. And I'm like, dude, you don't vote for people for being able to do, well, the fact that they have the ideology, you know, should kind of dictate to you how they're going to be able to do the job. Like, I don't want a person who's able to do the job and they're shit. You know, I want someone who's able to do the job who's actually good. So the idea that people are like, and I think it's been interesting to see online how people are just like, I think, you know, people are just kind of freaking out because I think people are now kind of realizing what we and other people in independent media have been saying like for months, you know, like, you know, we're kind of fucked in the midterms, and like all these candidates are actually not the people that they say they are. I think it's a mask off moment for many people, but they're still kind of holding on to the idea of like, oh, I want to vote Democrat, or in some cases, I'm going to vote for Republican in this kind of idea. And it's just kind of like, no talk of third parties, no talk of not voting, no talk of direct action, no talk of mutual aid, none of that. It's just like, oh, we're just going to continue doing in the very thing that in some cases, you know, people are trying to avoid people doing. I think it's just ridiculous. But
so,
anyway,
yeah, ploy for votes, ridiculous. Biden's weed pardon. Yeah, I mean, oh, so this is from Daniel Werst over at Left Voice. And again, I wanted to wait to talk about this till some more information actually came out. So I figured we'll get into it. So on October 6th, President Joe Biden announced that he is pardoning people convicted of simple possession of marijuana by the federal court system, and probably also people convicted by the District of Columbia court system. Right? So the Biden administration presents this as a response to the obvious excesses and cruelties of the United States' half-century war on drugs, and a serious step in reforming discriminatory treatment of Black and Latinx people by the police and the courts. But a White House spokesperson immediately admitted there are no individuals currently in federal prison solely for simple possession of marijuana. Biden is not actually releasing a single prisoner, even though the United States currently holds 1.9 million people behind bars. This is the largest rate of incarceration in the world. The U.S. holds 639 prisoners per 100,000 population, double the rate of 330 per 100,000 in Russia. Right?
Right. Yeah.
So,
it's like if you, yeah, and I don't know weed like that, but like if it was a simple position, that wouldn't be a federal offense.
no. It's never convicted that way.
Right. Like that maybe like on the local level, sure, or state, but never at the federal. So it's like, oh, you're muted, I think.
No. How about now?
Okay. Oh, okay.
I was just saying, like, yeah, it's never convicted that way.
Right.
Like, so, but anyway, Biden is expunging the criminal records of only 6,500 people convicted for weed possession by federal courts over the past 30 years, and perhaps a few thousand people convicted by D.C. courts. His reform is merely to remove a form of legal job and benefits discrimination from perhaps 10,000 people previously jailed and released over a product that half of the U.S. population and at least 2 presidents have consumed, and perhaps 3 in 10 American young adults use regularly.
I would argue probably
more. Right. That's who's willing to admit it to a poll.
Look, here's the thing. If I live in D.C., if you want to see some sketchy shit, hang out around the White House area around, I'll say like 3-4 o'clock in the morning. Like
We'll say 4:20 in the morning, just
maybe, but like,
you know.
And you would think that everyone is fast asleep.
No.
There's
No.
like, you know, interns walking out, like, you know, from, you know, different hotels that are in that general vicinity, you know, like there's some walks of shame, you know, like this is not like, you know, like I've lived here now for 5 years, so I kind of know the lay of the land now, just as a local, you know, not obviously not in government, but like, you know, the mentality is it's like you do what you need to do to present yourself in public as far as being a professional or whatever, but like when doors are closed or during certain parties, like people just go off.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and that's just normal people here. So you can imagine like the kind of inverse shit that happens with our politicians and government officials behind closed doors when cameras are not on. So,
well,
you know.
So Biden announced his pardon of no one 33 days before. That's a weird way to phrase that. I think it's like not one, but 33 days before the congressional election, I think. As an open bid for votes, the New York Times wrote that the announcement could give Democrats a boost in the upcoming midterm elections, especially among young people, liberals, and minority communities. So the NAACP president, Derek Johnson, immediately tweeted, "We applaud President Biden. Correcting unequal treatment, including marijuana reform, has been a priority issue for the NAACP for decades. This is dishonest. Biden has expanded the police and prison industrial complex throughout his 5 decades as a national politician. He is one of the authors of the racist mass incarceration, and a pardon that frees 0 prisoners doesn't change that. This statement from the NAACP shows how NGOs can work overtime to shore up and repair failing public faith in ruling class institutions. It's as if they are saying, hey, the Democratic Party really does understand regular people's problems. Trust us." So Biden, after 50 years of being a drug war leader, now announcing that there's a small group of people arrested and jailed who were treated unfairly, but a ruling class politician, specifically a man whose son was, by his own account, addicted to crack and was permitted the benefit of going to rehab, not jail, 15 times.
Right.
Acts as the arbiter of who is a deserving and who is an undeserving convict.
You know what? And out of all the things that Biden has done, and I hate that it's not talked about enough, is this. The idea of class in this situation is that, and I saw where he did this interview with Jake Tapper, and I think Jake Tapper asked him, I think in regards to, I forgot the situation that Hunter was in, or being alleged for, and basically Biden was like, hey, he's a good man, like he made mistakes, but he cleaned himself up, like he went to rehab, all of that. And it's kind of like, and you know what? Like, if Biden really cared, or if Biden had any heart in him, or whatever is left in that body of his, I wish he could have used that in a way to kind of connect to people and being like, look, my son struggled with drugs, I understand, especially back then, it was a hard time, for many of you. We all struggled. Like, we all have our vices that we all struggle with. In response to that, let me do whatever, if he did that, like that one thing, like he'll probably be the most popular president in this country. I would sure be by far. But because his son got to go to rehab, and then people in my community had to go to jail for doing less, I think just the cognitive dissonance there is just like, it's just really upsetting, and it angers me. And the fact that people don't necessarily make that connection, and don't think this is very much a class issue in addition to race, like, I just find very upsetting.
Well, speaking of, just as the ruling class have insisted, there's nothing fundamentally wrong with the police. Sounds familiar? Like nothing will fundamentally change.
Who are these people?
You know that lady?
There's nothing fundamentally wrong with the police for them.
Yeah.
So
yeah, exactly. We are seeing a minimal and pretentious drug pardon that doesn't speak to several burning questions. One, the invention of victimless crimes, the criminalization of mental health and social crises, and the fact that police are sent to patrol and shake down working class black and brown communities, while upper class people have always been able to indulge in cocaine, prostitution, and other vices, secure in the knowledge that the system is uninterested in their activities. Truth?
Yeah. Truth.
The marijuana reform mirrors the cosmetic prison reform Biden announced on taking office in January 2021. He declared he would phase out use of private corporate-run prisons by the federal prison system. Biden called this a step towards ending institutional racism, while hoping people wouldn't focus on the fact that private prisons held only 9% of federal prisoners, and federal prisons held only 11% of the U.S. prison population. So that he was speaking about only 1% or so of prisoners. The Biden administration continues to use private prison companies to operate most of the jails in which ICE holds immigrants awaiting deportation, regularly employing unpaid forced labor. Yay. That slavery amendment gets a little weird, don't it? In here? You're right. Where's she? Where's those fake tears at? The policy.
By the way, like someone had to tell me this. That picture, that famous picture where she was crying at the border. I think she wasn't even I think she was campaigning at that time when that picture was taken. She wasn't even in office yet.
Yeah.
So, yeah, just wanted to say that, but yeah.
No, you'll have more to say on this one. The policy also mirrors Biden's August surprise announcement of $10,000 to $20,000 student debt reduction and doing the absolute minimum to address a huge problem right before the coming election. Along with the pardon, Biden is ordering his Departments of Health and Human Service and Justice, specifically the DEA, to begin a bureaucratic review to consider shifting marijuana from Schedule 1, the worst category of drugs, down to Schedule 2. This would not legalize or decriminalize marijuana federally. I would like to repeat, this would not legalize or decriminalize marijuana federally, but it might pave the way for less severe federal action over the drug. Many people point out that the Schedule 1 list includes heroin. The Washington Post quotes Director of Reform NGO Coalition for Cannabis Policy, Education, and Regulation, suggesting it may take the administration up to 2 years to actually take this tiny step, which would be accomplished in a minute and is far short of legalization. 68% of the U.S. population supports actually legalizing marijuana and in turn decriminalizing it. I'm sure is way up there.
Yeah.
So for those, particular commentators who would like to just completely give any bone to Biden when he gives you barely a crumb, 1% of 1% of a crumb, in this case, that won't happen. He's going to dole out that crumb to you in 2 years when there's still people in prison now. Like, am I wrong?
Which is why, going back to what I was saying before, the best case scenario for them, I think Democrats, is having, Republicans take over the Senate and then keeping the House, because shit. It gives Biden to say, like, they're going to be, in a lame duck period. So you'll give him the cover, or probably even worse, heading into 2024, like a complete red wave. I don't think that's going to happen, but we're not ruling that out either. But but I feel a lot of what they're doing is on purpose. It is on purpose, is to force people just to be disenfranchised, not to come out and vote. I mean, people don't really come out in the midterms anyway to vote anyway, but I think especially given we're still in a pandemic, people are not making any more money. If anything, they're making less money given inflation. People can't pay their bills, people are still dying. People are not going to come out and vote for this shit. And then it just gives Democrats a cover to say, oh, we tried to give you something, actually what will really be the gag is if they hold control, or if anything, they gain seats in the Senate, or or in the House, and then actually being able to be like, oh, we can actually do shit. Now we need to figure out excuses as to why we can't. So,
well, and specifically, I mean, DC, 19 states and DC have already legalized recreational weed use over the last decade. Biden acknowledged that while similar portions of white and black people use marijuana, police for years arrested black people for possession of the drug at nearly 4 times the rate for whites. We have to question if it's legal to sell weed in 19 states and 68% of the public thinks the drug should be freely available. Why is anyone in state or federal prison anywhere for selling cannabis to consenting adults? Biden is not pardoning anyone convicted for selling pot. Furthermore, isn't it a bit convenient and hypocritical to admit that there is a rampant racism in arrests for possession, but to intentionally ignore the same phenomenon in policing of alleged drug dealers? And does admitting police focus on black people who are carrying out pot possession arrests, which totaled around 700,000 per year in 2000 to 2010, implying that police can be trusted to make other categories of arrests in a non-racist fashion? So, in August, Biden publicly trumpeted a plan for $37 billion in new federal funding for police departments. I'll read that again. Biden publicly trumpeted a plan for $37 billion in new federal funding for police departments. 1/3 of that money is used to hire 100,000 new cops. So for the people who think that funding is just going to cops, just 1/3 of that. Right? The administration calls this bill the Safer America Plan. Just as Biden pushed the punitive and racist 1994 crime bill, he fully supported criminalization of marijuana users from 1974 to 2019. Today, he is opportunistically using an expungement for a small number of drug war victims he himself targeted to score political points, without actually reversing the harm of the laws and actions he has supported, and while continuing to expand police forces. So, a White House spokesperson promised that Biden is urging all governors to now pardon the many tens of thousands of people jailed for weed by states, but there is no evidence this is anything more than empty words. Biden has placed no political pressure on Democratic governors to do this. Additionally, cops are hired by $13 billion in specific federal money to local governments, but this plan for restorative justice on pot possession is based on verbal suggestions.
Yeah.
The marijuana pardon is not the only way Biden is trying to put his Safer America police expansion into more attractive wrapping paper. After a year and a half of inaction on the murder of Breonna Taylor by Louisville police, the most infamous unaddressed racist crime by police in public consciousness, the Biden DOJ obtained federal indictments against one of the 3 cops who shot at Taylor and 2 others who lied in the search warrant process. Those indictments were announced 2 weeks after Biden's first Safer America Plan press release boasted that he had both funded the police and improved police accountability. The Biden administration continues to bring charges against cops and many other well-known murder cases. The Democrats give us mass police hiring and continue mass incarceration before elections. They make pretenses of liberalism that are hypocritically accepted by the capitalist media from the New York Times down and opportunistically used by Democratic NGOs. There is no reason to support either U.S. capitalist party. Marx and Engels were right when they insisted that in the absence of an oppositional working class party, especially in a strong imperialist country, working people are put into a mental, cultural, and political straitjacket. We are hegemonically dragged around by our rulers. All drug use should be decriminalized. Addiction and self-harm should be treated as physical, mental, and social health problems. With a high-quality, single, free public healthcare system, the act of simply selling unadulterated drugs to willing adult buyers should not in itself be treated as a crime. Drug use can be reshaped, but it cannot be halted. For this reason, we should have compassionate, controlled use places, allowing users of hard drugs to consume them with pharmacists, ensuring there will be no spiked fentanyl killing people and nurses preventing overdoses. There should also be government support for self-help and recovery like 12-step programs. All this would help people 1,000,000 times more than the drug war ever has. Our rulers are hypocrites, and they pose for votes. We need socialism so that all people can take charge of their own safety and health, and so that a 50-year personal career of privilege and nonsense like Biden's will stop being the normal mode of governing people's lives and indeed become impossible freedom for everyone who is unjustly imprisoned. Prison or real jobs is appropriate for bourgeoisie politicians.
And
Closing
the moral of the
thoughts.
story is, ladies and gentlemen, when it comes to capitalism versus socialism, the question is, should the power stay to the top? Should the power stay to the elites, or should the power be for everybody?
I mean, I'm going to say everybody. I would like it to be everybody, except for that guy. That guy shouldn't have the power. And you know who I mean. Yeah, I mean, It just feels silly that people immediately, without questioning, gave Biden credit when they thought he needed it.
Right. I mean, it was just, yeah, it was, but they were at the same time, in the same breath, they were like, oh, he needs to do more,
Yeah.
you know, but not, as I say to people, the devil's in the details. Like anything that looks good or what seems to be good is usually not. There's always a catch, you
Just
know?
assume there's a catch. Just assume.
Or it's not as good as you think it is.
Yeah.
You know? Like, so, but I mean, again, this, I don't know. I just feel like we need to report on feel good stories every once in a while because
I know, right?
to talk about all this. I mean, it makes sense given that we're in midterm season now. Maybe things might actually get better, you know, after midterms once people get really pissed, you know, like, but I will say, like, I just feel like, as I shared with Warren, Extra Bullia in the chat on Twitter the other day, I feel like, as in Star Wars, as they say, I sense a disturbance in the force. I feel like people are starting to get more mad. People are starting to call out politicians more. Like within the last few weeks, we've seen people call out AOC, Jamal Bowman,
Elizabeth Warren,
Presley, you know, like
Jayapal.
yeah, I feel people like, I feel like there's this beginning of a wave which I'm cautiously optimistic for, that people have just had enough and are seeing the bullshit and are getting tired of it and are speaking out about it. And so I just say to those people, you know, keep it up. You know, obviously don't do anything where, you know, you're crazy or you're going to hurt people or like anything like that, but definitely use your words. And
use your words.
Use your words, as I say to my kids, use your words, you know, but like, you know, but speaking truth, you know, don't be polite, you know, but speak in truth, whatever you do say, you know, because we need to see more of that. And like, I think especially in the last couple of weeks, we're seeing a lot of more of that direct action and openly calling out these politicians in public as far as the shit that they're doing, that they're not being accountable for, that we need to see a lot more of. At least a minimum if it's online. But again, you know, the fact that even the squad having to write well, you can argue, which is another thing, they sound that letter for months, you know, but you can make the argument, the small, like, piece of victory is that they probably wouldn't have done it if they hadn't been bitched out by people on Twitter.
Yeah.
And it made enough noise to the point where like it became viral that it couldn't be ignored anymore not to do something.
Look, listen. Poppy, why you stupid? Listen. Sorry, what?
But, you know, I mean, that being said, I hope in what we've been seeing in the last month now, like few weeks, that
more of
there's
that.
a turn of people who are beginning. Honestly, we should have been doing this post George Floyd, but I feel like hopefully there's more of a rising of that happening again. So we can only hope, but you know, but you know, we support it, you know, and we encourage all of you to do that way you can.
Yeah, like
I started bringing them my fucking reefer.
I mean, if only Joey Diaz was doing that to people, you know, because me personally,
because I was tired of paying for weed.
I'm really tired of paying for weed. So we could just decriminalize that so people can just grow it and sell it out of their pickup truck. I'd greatly appreciate it. Thank you. But anyway,
Last thoughts before
no, I think that's it.
So what we got coming up?
Thursday. I don't know if anyone's doing anything Thursday. We'll figure that out.
Friday,
I don't know. I might. I just gotta find guests. I need to find like someone who can like do that with me frequently. You know, And that would make it a lot easier to do every week.
Maybe people in the chat, you know, maybe our community that's growing would be more willing to do that with you.
Yep.
So
I've got a few options I need to
look into.
reach out to. Yep. So
Sunday, Saturday, I think we're good. I can't think of anything major going on this week. Oh, well, it's Halloween weekend, so I'm sure people are going to be partying and all that. So
I
be
need to
safe,
get
y'all.
Spooky. Spooky's supposed to give me a Halloween month stream, so I need to get her ass up and on camera. So but
so Saturday, I think we're good. Sunday.
how do we miss that? And then I'm not sure if Monday we're doing Tara, if we're doing Thursday, but stay tuned for that. It should be a good stream. So extra Warren says that secret shows will be happening. So keep an eye out for those. You can find all the links to support all the members of INN right there at that indienews.network. You'll see scrolling across the screen right there and in the doobly-doo below, as well as all the articles that we featured this week. But you can also find links to me and Collin in case you want to find us directly right down there. Next week, Wednesday, hopefully Socialist MMA, Nick Cruz from RBN.
And then the following Wednesday, looks like we kind of confirmed this, but we'll double check. We have the hosts of Do Dissonance. I'm not sure if you guys know about them, but they've actually been a while for a minute, but I think they're beginning to pick up a lot more views now. They're led by Russell Dublar, I guess that's how you say it, and Keaton Weiss. So we're gonna have either one of them or both. Show in 2 weeks, so we're really excited to have them on. I think that one will be very interesting, given what I've only seen a few clips of theirs online, and you know, I think that will definitely be an interesting conversation. Depending what I think more than likely will be post midterm shit that we'll probably be talking about. So I'm sure that'll be a very lively discussion. Definitely for the next
Who are these
2 weeks,
people?
you guys want to tune in. So
But yeah, no, that should be a good stream. I'm looking forward to coming on with Nick. That's gonna be fun. That guy brings heat. But anyway, I think that's anything I'm missing. I feel like I'm missing stuff. What is it?
That's why
indienews.shop. You can get all your INN merch.
Yeah, it's the holidays. Come on,
Crab,
people.
Jimmy, if you're listening, it's just the INN Google sign in to get into that. So if you want to make stuff there, you can.
Yeah, come on, guys. We need. Yeah, I mean, honestly, with Black Friday sales haven't started already, you know, like
I should put up some of my AI artwork on shirts too. That'd be a good move.
Yeah. So yeah, guys, like we got some stuff. I actually need to buy some shit that I can probably wear on stream too.
Yep.
You know, so but yeah, get your holiday shopping on. It's that time of year already. Jesus Christ, I can't believe like it's basically the holiday season.
Almost there.
Around this part, so but
all right, friends.
All right.
As always,
thank you all for watching.
Labels are bad. Stay independent. Good night, fam.